Good evening, everybody. Someone can just let me know if you can hear me okay, please. Right there. Okay. Thanks, Vicky. You win the prize tonight. Not sure what that prize is, but probably pretty good prize. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping palms joined. And you can put the palms down. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. My name is Jeff. Good to be with you all this evening. I always like to start with a question, typically, just to get you engaged a little bit and communicating with each other as well. My question for today is, what has been the most difficult thing you've had to adjust to with being at home a lot? It's a pretty open-ended question, but it's what just popped up into my head right now, so we'll go with it. What have you had to, or what's been most difficult of an adjustment as you're at home right now, most of the time? Often going places and doing things is kind of an escape for many people, and right now we don't have that ability so much. So we're often left to our own devices, and we can't just always go where we want or be with who we want or see what we want. So these are challenges right now as we kind of get stuck with ourselves quite a bit. So what's been the most difficult challenge for you? Are you able to adjust? What's it been like? So if you're new, you can just go ahead and as people you'll see chiming in, there's a chat box on your screen there. You can go ahead and just type in your answers if you'd like. What's been the most difficult adjustment you've had to make while being at home? Let's see, Marisa, not having as many of my usual distractions. Absolutely. Distractions get a lot of them are just gone in many ways right now. They're just cut out of your life completely. So that's a tough practice, not being able to socialize with friends in person. Absolutely. A lot of people are really struggling right now. And our college group right now has a decent amount of freshmen in our incoming pledge class, and so their entire freshman experience is online right now, which is a pretty crazy way to start college. Jeremy, glad to see you joining us. No community around the table, absolutely. A lot of us are just used to being with friends or family for meals, work-related events, whatever it might be, and gathering face to face is for many of us non-existent right now. So that's difficult as well. Getting used to having to communicate with people through these screens, which is challenging as well. It's funny for me when I sit and I do these recordings here, I'm staring at me on the screen, and then I'm staring at a little camera above it, and then there's a mirror behind here too. So it's a really odd situation. Dave, not coming to DBT in person. Yeah, it's difficult. I understand. It's difficult for us as well, not hosting people. As I talk about a lot, we'd love to, see people, and we miss people as much as anybody, but we just have to be really safe and smart right now. So, and even when I'm there, which is pretty regularly, it's an interesting feeling to be in there where there's nobody there, but maybe, one or two of us. But I promise the temple is clean as it's ever been, and it feels really good, and it doesn't feel like it hasn't been utilized in 7 or 8 months. It has a pretty strong practice in there every day from just a couple of us. So the temple feels really good and is really just waiting for everybody to come back when the time is right. Question, namaste. So that's a good question, a heavy question. We'll get to that after. I'd be happy to answer that question or respond to that question later. I'm just taking a few moments now to check in with everybody, and we'll start with the meditation, and then we can jump to questions after. Anything else about challenges you're having, difficulties before we get started with our meditation practice? All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the meditation. For those who are maybe joining us for the first time, there's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? Are we doing it right? Are we doing it wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds around you wherever you are. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of that chaos. So I will guide us as we begin. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. Again, I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention and focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound. each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Return to breath. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said, nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samupata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where we come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives, but with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun, but it's free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think and what you say and what you do. This is not an escape from reality. This is direct perception into the present moment. And when we learn to become aware of the present moment, then we begin to observe, what do I think, what do I say, and what do I do? And this is our karma. Karma means action. We generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, and mind. So the practice of learning to be silent and with our breath allows us to explore the nature of our minds, to see what it does. This is the same mind you run around with all day long, making choices that impact you and those around you and those not around you. So to sit quietly every day and reflect with your own thoughts is important. So with that, I'd like to stop, and as always, use the rest of the time tonight to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address, and we'll go from there. There's a question typed in earlier. In some countries, women face discrimination and rejection from both parents and in-laws. As a Buddhist, how to deal with this? Well, I think first is, I'm going to start with the second part of your question, which I address a lot because people often ask questions of, as a Buddhist, how do I do this or how do I do that? And, as I often say when we're at temple and if I'm leading the class and there's, 60, 70 people there, there's probably only a handful of Buddhists there. Most of the people that come to Dharma Bum Temple and that I'm around in this Buddhist community are not what they would call Buddhist. They're Christian and they're Catholic and they're Muslim and they're Jewish and they're pagan and they're, lack of any religion. So I think it's important to, and this is really for everyone, not just for you, but I think it's important to recognize that there's what the Buddhists taught, or what the Buddha taught, and then there's what people do with his teachings. So for me, it's not important that one becomes Buddhist, but it is important that we look at what the Buddha was teaching and figure out how can we integrate this into our lives. The Dalai Lama was asked years ago if this country needed more Buddhists, and he said the world has enough Buddhists. This country just needs people that are peaceful and happy. So for me, that's always been the practice of the Buddhist teachings. As far as specifically the question of dealing with discrimination and rejection from parents and in-laws, I'll say this in a broad sense that, here in this country, people face discrimination and rejection from parents, from in-laws, from all family and friends, from strangers. There's a lot of that goes on a daily basis, whether it's, a family situation or not. And so for me as a practicing Buddhist, I think it's important to understand that people will always judge you. They will always have their critiques of you. They will always treat you how they want to treat you. And this is an opportunity for us to practice, but at the same time recognize that people viewing us from a lens of discrimination and rejection is not kind, it's not healthy, it's not gentle. But we cannot force other people to view us a certain way. So it is our opportunity to practice and to recognize, how are these people viewing me? And does that have anything to do with me, or is that simply their own unenlightened, ignorant views? So again, as a practitioner, I recognize this is who I am based on my choices, and people will choose to love me or hate me based on whatever they want. All I can focus on is what my actions are. When you deal very specifically with discrimination and rejection, dealing with in-laws, that's going to happen quite often, unfortunately. So I think it's a question of how do you respond to it, and to recognizing, again, as I said earlier, that that's their ignorance, not yours. So hopefully that's helpful. Appreciate the question. It's unfortunate that there is a lot of that occurs. And as I said earlier, it's not kind, it's not gentle, it's not healthy, but it exists. Other questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything on your minds that I can address? Challenges, difficulties, curiosities, questions. And again, if you are new, I didn't say this again, but if you are new, there's a chat box there. Feel free to type in your question, and I'll go ahead and respond. Hello, Amy. How or when does the practice of forgiveness fit with Buddhist teachings? I think that, when would be every moment, and how, very skillfully. When I look at Buddhist teachings, I recognize that we all have what the Buddha called bodhicitta, Buddha nature, that we all have the ability to awaken. The Buddha was human. He woke, he walked, he roamed around, he ate, he slept, went to the bathroom just like we do. And we too can awaken and understand our ignorance and cut through our ignorance to live with endless wisdom and compassion. Now, when we don't live with endless wisdom and compassion, we do things that harm others. You, myself, and everybody else joining us tonight and every other moment have done things that harm others. And for me, when it comes to forgiveness, it's recognizing that if someone has done something that I feel harmed me, I first have to reflect on, have I done anything that's harmed others? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. And would I want forgiveness? Absolutely yes. So what I was taught from my master initially was that when we do things that harm someone and we want to, for lack of better words, repent or look for forgiveness, the first thing we do is to acknowledge what we did was not in accord with the Buddhist teachings, that it was not from a place of generosity, compassion, and wisdom, but it was from a place of greed and anger and ignorance, which is the second noble truth. So the cause of my suffering is greed, anger, ignorance. And when I act out on greed, anger, ignorance, then I do things that cause harm to others. So to recognize that is first. The second thing is to recognize that if it's appropriate to apologize and ask for forgiveness, then to do it. If it's something that maybe I harmed someone 20 years ago and calling them out of the blue and, bringing it up again and saying, I'm sorry for what I did, is probably not appropriate now. So to apologize to somebody else, to, talk to a friend or loved one or someone and care about and say, look, I apologize for what I did to this person a long time ago. And so to honor that and recognize that practice. And the third thing is to vow to never do it again. And I think this is very important, that as we do things that harm people and we apologize and want forgiveness, forgiveness is a funny thing because often we want to be forgiven, but then we'll do the same thing we just did over and over and over again. And then we constantly look for forgiveness. So the vow, I think, is important, is to vow to stop doing the actions and behaviors that are causing situations where we need forgiveness. So I think these things are really important as a practice. One, again, to recognize what you did was not in line with the teachings. Two, is to apologize wherever or to whoever is appropriate. And three, to vow not to do it again. Um, I think when we have an opportunity to forgive someone, if you flip it around, um, then forgiveness is often for ourselves as much as it is for them. So when we don't forgive someone, we're holding on to that burden, that pain, that past that really hurt us deeply. And so our inability to forgive someone allows us or keeps us stuck in living in it over and over and over again. So I know in my life from practice that if I've been able to forgive someone, it actually liberates me as much as anyone, because then I no longer carry that hatred or anger towards someone else. I'm able to see that what they did came from a place of greed, anger, ignorance, and forgive them for it. And in many ways, your forgiveness towards them liberates both people. So hopefully that's helpful, Amy. My mind starts to burn when it encounters with defilements. How to deal with this? By burn, I'm not really sure what you mean. Um, but I think most important is to just recognize that when you encounter defilements and they become a part of your consciousness and your thoughts and your words and your actions, to just recognize what it does and to learn to transform that, and allow it to pass. So if the recognition of anger arises, recognize that thought, that feeling, that emotion, and allow it to pass and not act on it. I think it's important just to recognize that the mind will do all kinds of things, but none of them are permanent. They're just conditions coming together for a period of time and then ceasing to exist. So hopefully that's helpful. Christy, hello, Christy. The hardest part of practice for me is giving up my sense of control, that I'm in control of the events and things that happen in life to me. I'm learning I'm in control of none of this. Can you speak to this? How to surrender and be more of an active observer of your life instead of trying to control it? Well, yeah, it's a common question, a common dilemma, a common struggle is this illusion of control. For me, I think it first started with recognizing that, and I think you even said this. Yeah, the last line where you said, "I'm learning, I'm in control of none of this." That for me, someone who grew up loving to control every situation and every environment and everything and every person I could, uh, surrendering control is extremely difficult because when we feel like we're in control, we feel safe, we feel protected, we feel that it's like this power thing. It's power. Control for me always equaled power. And I don't know which one I surrendered first, but they kind of, I think, just um, almost fall apart together when you realize that the entire thing is an illusion. Uh, this idea of having control is completely false, because all you're in control over is a story that's in your head, and that story is also an illusion. We are an illusion. We are as impermanent as it gets. So we don't even have any control over our mind. Very little, if any. Yet somehow we have this illusion that we have power and control over everything and everyone else. And yet, if I said to anybody, sit for an hour and do nothing but think positive thoughts, we can't even do that most of the time. So why would we think we have control or power over other people or places or things? It's all an illusion. You have a story in your head that you think is important. You want that story to play out a certain way. So you tell yourself a way that you're going to make it happen, and you just get stuck in this story. Letting go of control is learning to be present with things as they are and not tied. And this is where attachment comes in. The story is really tied to an attachment or an expected outcome. So you have a story in your head, you have an outcome of how you want your whole life to be, and then you spend your entire life trying to play out that exact story. The challenge is, can we just not attach to the story and appreciate everything and everyone in our life as they are right now? Because we know at some point they'll be gone. So we'd love for something to happen quicker, right? Maybe we want someone to be healthier quicker or to heal quicker, but they're going to become healthy or heal at whatever pace they're going at. And whatever story I might want or any story that I might attach to is irrelevant. And in fact, that idea of having a story and trying to control it and thinking I have some power or control over it would just cause me to suffer. So you do what you can in each moment, and it's really hard. Say, for example, raising children. Obviously, you want to control your children's lives to a certain extent, especially if they're small children. But your child is still going to make their choices on their own. And I'm not saying that you just let your child run aimlessly around, right? As a parent, you guide, you shape, you teach, you encourage. But in many ways, they're then going to go off on their own. And that's, I think, the greatest lesson of non-attachment and learning to let go of control, because you don't have any at some point. The child will grow up and make all of their choices on their own, and you're not going to like a lot of them. So the sooner we abandon the story about how we want things to be, and the sooner we embrace how things are and appreciate how things are and have gratitude with how things are, the sooner this idea of power and control goes away. And I default to what I say a lot. I think I've said it the last 2 classes I've led, but learning to go beyond expectations, to not expect anything from anyone ever, has been a beautiful practice. Don't expect anything from anyone ever. Because the only reason you want power and control is to meet your expectations. If you have no expectations, then there's no need for power, no need for control. And to me, that's what love and compassion is. So hopefully that's helpful. If you asked me that tomorrow, I would respond, I'm sure, completely differently. So, so Marisa, yes, admitting that you also love power and control. Samir, reflecting on my past, I've learned that I was always wearing different masks around different people. It's more peaceful just being myself and not caring as much about others' opinions or insults. Yeah, absolutely. And good, Christy. I'm glad that helped. It's a tough one, letting go of power and control. And, 1 3-minute spiel on it doesn't make it stop, but keep reminding yourself of it. This idea of wearing different masks, again, that also has a lot to do with power and control, is that we want to control the way people perceive us. We want to control the way people talk about us. We want to control what people, think about us. And so we put on the masks to be certain people, to be someone to certain people. You want to be this way to a family member, this way to a colleague, or this way to a stranger, as opposed to just being who you are. I remember years ago, it was an odd thing, but we had met somebody outside of Temple, and he was relatively young, and maybe 20 years old or something. And he said that he was surprised that I was the same person outside of Temple that I was at Temple. And I didn't really think about it much. I don't really, try to be one way or the other, but it was an interesting observation that just try to embody and be the essence of who you are always. Some people will love it, some people won't. But that's their choice, not yours. the idea of trying to control how people perceive you is exhausting. Trying to be this perfect person for everybody is exhausting. Trying to change the masks, as you say, Samir, all the time is exhausting. So just try to be kind, try to be compassionate, try to be caring, try to be generous, try to be wise, and be that person. That person that is a work in progress. If you're someone who loves power and loves control, as I always did when I was younger, recognize that. Understand the root of that, which is your ego and not wanting to be disappointed. And work on cultivating a life where you can remove that view that centers around your expectations being met all the time. So twice today I stopped myself from telling myself a story. It was good. Yeah, the stories, like I said, the stories are exhausting. Whatever stage you're at in your life, you have a story for how you think the next day, the next 6 months, the next 6 years are going to go. And trying to fulfill that story and live up to that story is I think, exhausting. So, other thoughts, questions? I was looking at the second part of your question, Christy. Can you speak to how to surrender, be more of an active observer of your life instead of trying to control it? I think I actually gave this example last week, but it just popped into my head when I read that again. Is think about when you watch a movie, right? You go see a 2-hour movie and you're watching it on the screen for 2 hours, and it might have some emotional impact on you, depends on the movie, or it, triggers some thoughts or some dialogue, or maybe, makes you explore some things differently or change some things in your life. But you're watching the movie and just observing it without it completely consuming who you are. And so for me, I try to think of my life as just the same thing, that I am this illusion that I call Jeff and that I've created a story around. And can I just be a movie going through life without getting so emotionally charged or attached or driven by every little thing that happens, right? You could see a powerful 2-hour movie and it'll make you emotional. And then by the next day, you're over it. But you have something in your life that's extremely powerful and emotionally charged, and it consumes the next 12 years of your life. So can you be the observer and just recognize that you're just playing out your life? So at the very least, enjoy it, learn to laugh, learn to have fun, learn to, be kind. These are just ways of being without getting too wrapped up in the movie. So, all right. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there. We're almost out of time anyways, and I think that's a lot to ponder. So we'll go ahead and we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up the Dharma Bum Temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. Just about every night we have different practices going on. Even though we've been closed for almost 8 months now, we've moved just about everything we do online. So we're doing our best to meet the needs of the community during this pandemic. So 90% of the stuff is online. Endless gratitude to everybody who's worked so hard this year to keep the temple going, to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights are on YouTube, and Saturday morning, everything else is on Zoom. Our recovery community, our college community, our teen community, Monday through Friday every morning. So much going on through the Dharma Bum Temple. Just go to the website and check it out. Nothing out of the ordinary coming up. So if I never see you again, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's really the heart of this practice. So that's it. Please be safe, wear a mask, stay home as much as possible. And I wish you all well and a good evening.